What's going on, good people? Mira Young with Fantastic Forum, and I get to be standing here with Matt Hawkins. Matt, thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks for
you.
having me.
No, of course, man. I want to start with the beginning of your career in comics, which I know that you actually got hired like at a convention on the spot by Rob Liefeld, right?
Yeah, April of 1993.
Which is insane. I mean, like 1993, I know, well, listen, I feel like you and I are probably around, maybe around the same age, so 1993 doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but at the same time, it was, which is unfortunate.
Like 30 years ago.
I know, it's insane.
It is a little crazy.
It's insane. But I know that you didn't have like any comic book experience at that point.
No, I did not. I didn't have any at all. In fact, I was working a job at a bank. I was working on my physics degree, and I happened to meet Rob because my nephew was a comic fan. He asked me to take him to a signing.
That's
It was at
insane.
Mile High Comics in Anaheim, California. They had an opening there, and for a store they had there for a while. And yeah, I just asked Rob for a job, and he hired me. It's crazy.
I wanna know. That's hilarious. I want to know, what was it like being in the comic book industry, but like not necessarily having like a background for comics? Because that's, you know, a bit of an oddity for that field, especially considering that, you know, it's like, you know, people generally aren't going into comics for the money. Right. So, you know, so what was that like for you, and what was that learning curve like?
It was strange because in the early days of Image, there were a lot of people like Jack Kirby that came into Rob Liefeld's offices.
Oh my God.
Was there, and I didn't even know who he was.
Wow.
And, you know, we worked with Alan Moore and Warren Ellis, and I didn't know who these people were either.
Right.
And so it was a very quick education for me, but I gravitated towards the writers that I personally liked. Right. Which were the Alan Moores and the Neil Gaimans, and you know, Image was always known for its artwork and the artists and the big robust art. So I always dreamed about bringing in more of the writers and the writer side. So that was always at least what I wanted to try to do.
Absolutely. And so, what was your actual first job there? Like, you got hired on the spot. What did he hire you to do?
I was in charge of marketing.
Okay.
And I was brought in as like a marketing clerk or whatever it was, and I was the first one of that department because before that they didn't have a marketing department. So
so you were the marketing department.
I was the marketing department, and then very quickly I became one of his editors, and then as Eric Stevenson and I were basically the two guys that ran the company with him. Absolutely. Until Awesome Comics in '96, and then when that went down, I went to Image Central Direct and did My Lady Pendragon book for 2 years, and then Mark Silvestri hired me in April of '98, and I've been at Top Cow ever since. So that's almost 25 years. And
you know, we've had the opportunity to talk to Rob about you know, just his career, of course, and whatnot. But I know we've heard from numerous people that, you know, Awesome was a time. Like, what would you say was the memory that sticks out the most for you of that time, where it was like maybe the wildest thing that happened or the most impactful thing for you?
Well, it's just there was so much energy back in the day, and there was so much enthusiasm for all this stuff. But I think the moment I realized that the real competition between the Image partners was the Image partners. Yeah. They weren't competing with Marvel and DC, they were competing with each other. And when I realized how much Rob wanted to beat Jim Lee and how much these guys were all in competition with each other, that was very eye-opening for me, because I always thought we were all part of one big happy family. But it's more of a happy family today than it was back then.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I know the rivalries were real.
Yeah, it was nuts. Yeah. And, good times, though. I remember it just being, it was just so crazy. It's so different than now. I mean, it's all we talked about. We lived, breathed, and ate comics. We were all hanging out together 24/7. And now, you know, I have adult children. You know, so I'm like, you know, I'll be 53 next week. So that's how old I am.
Wow, and, that's crazy.
And so it's just weird for me when I think about that. I'm like, I've been doing this for a long time. Yeah. You know, and I've worked with Harlan Ellison. I've worked with some really heavy hitters in my career, and it's nostalgic. Like, we're celebrating Top Cow's 30th anniversary, you know, and so I've been here for most of it, and so it's interesting for me, and it's weird when you get to be one of the older guard, You know what I mean?
I can only imagine. Yeah,
you're the brash young upstart, and then now you're one of the older guard, and it's weird. Yeah, it's an acclamation. I mean, I still feel like we're relevant.
So you basically learned. And I should also say, I agree with you 100%. Definitely relevant.
Yeah,
100%. No, but you learned the art of writing comics. You know, like in the midst of you learning about comics themselves and whatnot. How did you develop your own style during that time? and like leading to the work that you're doing basically today?
Well, in the early days, I was just a poor man's Alan Moore. I was trying to be Alan Moore.
Hey, and, if you're going to imitate somebody, that's a great start, right?
But I loved From Hell, and one of the reasons why I do so much research, and back of all my books I do all the other research, is I love that deep dive that Alan did in From Hell and the Whitechapel murders, and so I was trying to emulate that, and then I think I sort of developed my own style over time, and I'm not sure what it is, because I'm doing the romance stuff and I'm doing the science fiction stuff, and it's so different.
It is very different.
And I kind of like that because it's interesting. You know, one month I'm working on this, and the other month I'm working on this, and it keeps life entertaining.
And I will say that, you know, I mean, as a fan of your work, I will say that you definitely, or there are many writers that don't necessarily have that kind of range.
Right.
And so I understand that, or at least in my experience with your work, the back matter and the research that you do definitely shows in the work. Like, it doesn't feel... or when you look at it, it doesn't. You can definitely see all the influences and all of the places that you drew the inspiration from. Right. But is it tough, like being that varied in your subject matter, or is it better? Or do you feel like
it was hard to master? Like I feel I feel like my science fiction skills were on point by the time I started writing romance. It took me a long time to learn how to write romance, and it's actually much harder. And it's almost counterintuitive for me to say that, because the hardest thing I ever had to do was write romance, because it's very easy. Like this Sedgwick book is about dragons literally dogfighting with spaceships. You know, visually that's very easy to look cool, right?
Yeah.
Swing is about a couple that's trying to stay in love. You know, how do you make that visually interesting? You know, I mean, it becomes a lot more about dialogue, situation, emotion. I think the romance side of it has made me a better character writer, and I have to thank the Sedgwicks for that, because I never would have tried it without them.
It's interesting. I also want to ask you about, like, one of the projects that you do that I love the most is Think Tank.
Yeah.
And, you know, I love reading about really intelligent people.
Right.
You know, I don't know how smart you actually are.
Oh, I'm not that smart.
But you know, like, I don't know if you're actually a genius, you know, but hey, but you know,
was.
Okay, right there it is. So, but you know, what is it like writing somebody that is actually a genius, and how do you make sure that you keep that kind of voice? Because obviously, like, you know, when you talk about some of these other things, you know, like, you actually, you know, you have experience with romance.
Yes.
You know, but you know,
I don't have any experience making nuclear missiles. Yes,
there you go.
I got you. That's a lot. You know, I have a physics degree and background, and most of the people that I knew from high school and college that are still friends of mine, they are all in the military-industrial complex.
Ah, gotcha.
All of them. So my best friend works for Raytheon down in El Segundo, and he's building drones and missile systems. And you know, I don't know about the classified stuff. They don't share that, and I don't ask, because I don't want to get them in trouble, even inadvertently over a beer. But a lot of that stuff's declassified online after 10 years, Freedom of Information Act, and so I know a lot about a lot of the stuff that's going on, and everything you see in the news is 15 years old. You know, by the time you actually see it in the news, it's yesterday's news.
Wow.
You know, so the new stuff is the stuff that'll spin your mind. So, no, Think Tank is a hard book to write, because you have to keep it current.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I can't even imagine. And I know that, you know, we had the opportunity to chat a little bit earlier. You mentioned that you have some new stuff coming down the line, right?
Yeah. It's about immersion in yourself. Like immersion for me, it's like I'll go through and I'll read a bunch of science fiction stuff. I'll go back and read Nature magazine. I'll read a bunch of stuff, get myself back in sort of that science headset, and then, because people like that, they talk differently.
Yeah,
like, they actually speak. They use words you never heard of.
I agree.
And they very analytical versus less emotional. So you have to kind of retrain how you think. But for me, this character is an easy one to write, because I'm essentially writing my father. That was my father.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't know that.
My father was a genius level guy who built weapon systems for the military. That's what my dad did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my dad did that for 30-some years. So, yeah, he was part of the whole. That was him. So I grew up on missile bases where he was working on this stuff and knew a lot of these people. All I did is I took his original story and I made it modern.
Wow.
The original idea from, because he was recruited from the military from the science fair. Like, if you look at science fairs, they're supported by the military. If you actually look at science fairs, high school science fairs, the companies that support those, it's actually the military.
Wow.
And the reason why is because they're looking for junior geniuses that they can suck into their world. Just like, you know, how somebody's scouting Shaq when he's 8.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I mean, they're scouting these guys when they're 13, 14, because a lot of times those guys are high school seniors, you know, and they're doing stuff. If you go through any science fair at a high school, you'll see 40 things that look like a typical high school student, and you'll see 2 that look like these crazy nut jobs did them. Those 2 nut jobs, those are who the military go for.
That's it.
You know
That's
what I mean?
it.
And that's been going on for decades.
And so, you know, you mentioned how for Think Tank you used your dad basically as inspiration. What other examples do you have like that where, you know, from your personal life that you have done for your projects?
Virtually every character except for Aphrodite 9. I mean,
okay.
Like David Lauren is, like I said, based on my dad, but Mark from Postal is very much based on my college roommate.
Oh, wow.
Who was diagnosed at that time with Asperger's. I know it's not a real diagnosis anymore, but was very heavy on the spectrum and had OCD issues, and was just an interesting guy to live with for a semester, you know.
Wow.
But watching that up close, you know, he's one of my best friends. They're very loyal. It's really interesting. Like, they would never lie to you, even on things that you want them to.
Right.
You know, and fascinating people. So there's a little bit of everything, and I write a lot of myself. Like Colossus is honestly, it's about one of my sons.
Oh, okay.
A little half Asian, half white kid who's got some problems at school.
It's good stuff.
You know.
So, is there any other like projects or anything that you might want to go ahead and just mention before we let you get back to the booth?
Well, I'm doing in the Swing Sunstone universe. I'm doing a new book called Swipe. And which we like these S titles: Sugar, Swing, Sunstone. The Swipe is going to be about it's another romance book. It's about 2 middle-aged people that just recently got divorced, and they meet each other through online dating and sort of navigate through that morass of chaos.
Cool.
So yeah, I'm having fun with that one. The research on what it's like to date as a woman, I wish I'd done when I was 15. I'm a 52-year-old guy right now. I'm learning shit about women I never knew, and I'm like, this would have been valuable information when I was 16.
How do you even you just you're asking your
Google.
friend?
No, you just Google. Google is what's it like to be a woman dating a man? What are the fears? What do you like? What do you look for? And dude, it's this deep dive of shit you would never normally look at. But you go through and read it, and I'm like, holy shit! Like.
Got to do that when I go home.
It's fascinating. No, and you get into some of the stuff like they've referred to high quality men and low quality men.
Right.
And their definition of a high quality man is there is no man. That definition is like Clark Kent, you know, a perfect man in every way. But I don't know. The old joke about you know, men marry the woman and they want her to stay that way forever, you know, but the woman marries a man and has a plan for his ass.
Yeah, there it is.
That's I always joke about. You're going to get me in trouble now.
No worries. Hey, Matt, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. We do appreciate you, man.
All good.
Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Hawkins.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Yeah, that was fun.
Awesome, man.